Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're talking insights here with Manuel Garcia-Garcia from Ipsos. Welcome to the show, sponsored by Question Pro. My name's Asim, I'm from Question Pro. Manuel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Absolutely. Fantastic. It's been such a great day of talking insights with different folks and love to have you here on the show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So today we're talking about emotions and how emotions influence the customer behavior. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why are emotions crucial in shaping research outcomes for the consumer?
Yeah, emotions are very critical in our decision making in general. So when it comes to consumer behavior, it's very important. It's key to predict purchase decision, even recommendations, brand equity, like how brand is going to be chosen before a different one. So actually at Ipsos we developed this framework that says the Ipsos Emotion Framework, but it's sitting on decades of academic research, and we did this with our academic partners, and the bulk of it is that emotions as such are not universals, like they depend on our culture, on the context where they're happening, on our language and how we express them. But however, there are three dimensions that are universal.
Okay.
Indeed, which means in whatever language, in whatever context, and in whatever culture, I can tell you what I'm feeling is more positive or more negative, is more intense or less intense, and if I'm feeling more in control or less in control in that situation. So those three that we call dimensions, but it's basically ways to explain how you feel. Those are universal, wherever you are, however you call it in an emotion in your language. And in a given context, you can explain things in those dimensions, and those dimensions are very real and very biological, and they have biological correlates. So those things are actually very predictive of behavior. So understanding those is really critical to understand consumer behavior, to understand consumer attitudes.
That's fascinating. I mean, I think this is really interesting because I think everybody kind of realizes emotions tie into kind of the brand experience, but this concept of emotions changing between cultures, that's got to make it super hard for researchers. So remind us, what are the three? So you said intensity, control. What were the three factors that you look at across cultures?
Valence, arousal, and control. There's an article that was an academic article published in PNAS in 2019 that's very critical for this framework that shows that across different language families, there are different emotions, and they are not universal. They're closer in language families and cultures that are closer, but more far apart from those that are more far apart. But then that some dimensions, some dimensions are common across all of these cultures, and there are more than these three. But these three, especially valence and arousal, are the most prominent. So it's valence, which means more positive or more negative, it's more pleasant or more unpleasant. It's arousal, which is the intensity, it's more intense or more weak. And then we use control, which is if I'm feeling in control of the situation or out of control. And then it needs to have a lot of flexibility because in different aspects of life and different use cases in market research, it would be applied differently.
Very interesting. So you're taking something that's very, very complex, and you started to give us kind of a framework that we can use across all these different cultures. Now, how do brands leverage this? How can they leverage the emotion and empathy to build stronger connections with their consumers?
I think one element that's critical is to understand those cultural nuances. So even for text analytics and whatnot, very often there are databases that are translated, and it's clear in the framework that translating is not keeping the substance.
Okay.
So even in part of our research, we check what's the most common emotion, the most universal emotion ever, happiness.
Yep.
So in some of our research, we did some foundational research across 10 different countries. So even if we were comparing happy in English in the United States and in Arabic in Saudi Arabia, Zayed, the valence was the same. So it was as positive in the US as in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
But the arousal was a lot higher in Saudi Arabia, around 2 percentage points higher than in the US. So when we're saying happy in one country or another, we're meaning maybe not completely different things, but very different things on the most universal emotions. So if we're talking about other emotions that are more complex, the nuances are going to be stronger. So I think this is very critical for brands to, first of all, to understand the consumer, to really understand the consumer, but then to be able to position your brand and your product in a way that fits how the consumer feels. So that's one aspect. And then just the fact of like being able to understand in a very like biological and universal level with these three dimensions how your consumer feels can help you position things in a way that will lean towards successful outcomes in terms of like purchase decisions. And then regarding empathy, understanding the emotional consumer journey will help anyone like build a customer experience or build a user experience that's more empathetic with the user and with the consumer, and that will make them feel better about the brand and about the product.
Right. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So this is like total lost in translation, right? You can't just take kind of the open-ended text, translate it. So what do you do then? How do you kind of detect and measure the emotions if it's not just a question of translating the open text responses?
So actually what we do is kind of simple, because we think it's very important, since emotions are not universal, to not give them a number of emotions that we select, and then we select that as universal. So because if you do that, then those are universal because they have to check one. But to give them the opportunity to express how they interpret their feelings, their changes in their body, in their language, and in a given context. So then you have the user-generated emotion or how they're feeling, and how they're feeling is always valid. But then in addition to that, we ask them about those three dimensions: valence, arousal, and control. And then we have somewhere where we can map that emotion that's user-generated into something that's universal. That's this map of valence, arousal, and control. And then this map is universal, so it allows you to compare with different contexts, to compare with different cultures, and it has numbers, so it allows you to model and to create models. So those emotions will be linked to some sort of predictive outcome, just depending on the context of being like long-term brand effectiveness or market success in terms of like sales volume, velocity, or whatnot. There's a lot of things that you can do with that, so it's cool.
So that's interesting. So you've taken something that's so subjective, like emotions, and started to actually use it in a way that's predictive. Our kind of typical quant analysis. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, what are you finding in your data that shows how emotions is actually leading to consumer purchase decisions?
Yeah, so they're like different pilots and also experiments and projects that we've done with clients that are pretty cool, and we're like in the line of modeling emotion to understand some outcome. So there's one project that we did with Google that was pretty cool, on which we were measuring on YouTube ads how respondents were feeling, and like that with open end, and then valence, arousal, control. Valence was like very strongly predictive of long-term brand effectiveness, and that's what we're looking for. But that's kind of like common sense. Like if you feel better, it's better for your long-term brand effectiveness. But then because they were providing with their specific emotions, we could identify which were the specific emotions that would lead to long-term brand effectiveness. And we would see like on the negative, some that are obvious, on the positive, some that are obvious. But then we also identified like empathy and surprise as like big, and those are not even positive or negative.
Interesting.
Those are very neutral as two emotional states that were very much linked to long-term brand effectiveness of a commercial. And that also like helps a lot, like build for them creating or developing the creative execution to build a story that's not just on the positive or just on the negative to drive behavior, but something that can be connected through empathy or through surprise and be successful. So that was like something very interesting. But in different areas, we've been working on modeling those emotional states to identify which are the ones that will provide success for a brand.
Amazing. It's almost to me like going from 2D to 3D. right? Where you have so much more nuance in those emotions and across different geographies and cultures in terms of how it actually impacts a brand, right? I mean, obviously you can go from positive to negative sentiment, and that seems pretty logical. But once you start to get into empathy and surprise and how these things differ between geographies, I think that's really the next level. Manuel Garcia-Garcia, we can chat about this, I'm sure, for another 45 minutes. This is just a taste, and I'm sure people will follow up with you to get a little bit more info, but this has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for your time today here at SMR.
Thanks a lot for having me, and happy to answer any question that anyone can have. Feel free to reach out to me.
You can't know the answer to a question without first asking it. But how do you ask the questions? More importantly, how will people answer them? That is where Question Pro comes in to support you, empowering you to build and deploy amazing experiences that collect clean and useful data. With our powerful online-based, built-for-enterprise survey platform, it is easy to create, collect, and act on your data. Create an impactful survey in minutes from scratch by importing an existing survey, or choose from over 350 ready-made templates that have been vetted by our expert market research professionals. Add as many respondent contacts as you want and share them through multiple distribution methods. Collect offline data and use white-labeled mobile apps to ensure data collection is extensive and up-to-date. Take advantage of our specialized services to manage enterprise projects, as well as the instances where the insights collection is complicated but imperative. Then, leave the rest to Question Pro. Sit back and watch us work magic as the data is analyzed and compartmentalized into functional insights automatically. Create role-based access reports in addition to exporting the data and insights into your proprietary toolset, allowing you to focus on what's most important, making smart decisions. Question Pro, survey software that gets the job done.